Cleaning up the mess from the debate, Chrissy Teigen and John Legend's heartbreaking loss, and a scientific development that has potential to quite literally solve one of humankind's most pressing problems. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Thursday, October 1st. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. We made it till October, Carlo.
Rocktober. I'm ready. Jill, what a day. Did you get a chance to go outside yesterday? And just a perfect fall day here in the Northeast.
It was gorgeous, yeah.
To me, there is nothing better than an early fall Northeast, just, the crisp air, the early leaves. I just love it.
Who are you? Someone woke up on the right side of the bed this morning. All right, let's talk about the debate hangover felt across America, now in its second day. So the cleanup after this chaotic first presidential debate started almost immediately after the candidates left the stage. It started actually during the debate on social media. But the Commission on Presidential Debates now says that it's going to change the format for upcoming debates. After President Trump's repeated interruptions, those changes reportedly include an option for the moderator to cut off a candidate's mic if they don't stop talking. Chris Wallace, who moderated Tuesday's trainwreck, he's speaking out. He said that it was a, quote, terrible missed opportunity, and he said he was just sad with how it turned out. The president, by the way, attempting to walk back his refusal to outright condemn white supremacists. So he's still that might be one of the biggest legacies of the debate. That comment that he made: "Stand by, Proud Boys," who, by the way, are loving it. The head of Proud Boys on social media,
and they have merch now.
Yes.
Yeah, they're selling T-shirts with like that. I mean, what a just stupid whiff from the president. Just a missed opportunity to just not. I mean, you don't want if you're losing in the polls, you don't want that to be the legacy of this debate, right? Meanwhile, though, 73 million people watched this thing on TV. That sounds like a lot, and it is, but it is a 13% decline from the first debate of 2016. A lot of people were thinking that this debate was going to break records. It did not. And I still haven't seen the tick by ticks on how many people dropped off after the first 10 or 20 minutes, but I suspect it was a lot. I think that 73 million is probably what it was in the beginning. I do have more thoughts on the debate and sort of where we go from here, but I'm going to save them, Jill, for our special podcast with J.D. Durkin, which we are going to record in a few hours, and we'll drop that later on today. If you guys want more politics, if you don't, just don't listen.
One thing that Chris Wallace said that I just will say, he said, "I never dreamt it would go off the tracks the way it did." And he said he kind of kept thinking that that Donald Trump that it was just something he was doing in the beginning with the interrupting, and that he would eventually follow the rules. I
still, people are giving him such a hard time, but how would one moderate that debate? Right? Like, what should he have done? Like, come up there and, like, smacked him around or ripped his microphone off?
I don't know, because they didn't have, cutting off the mic as an option. I still don't know if that's realistic. My suspicion, and then we'll move on from this, my suspicion is that the president will be better behaved in the next debate solely because somebody is going to be, I don't know who he listens to, but presumably someone will be telling him it just wasn't a good look and it didn't play well, and it was a missed opportunity for him. So I think that alone will make it a little bit better next time around.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah, I know. Don't actually. Okay, with President Trump, meanwhile, preparing to hold rallies in Wisconsin this weekend, the state is reporting its highest number of COVID-19 hospitalizations on record, and a dwindling number of hospital beds available statewide, 18% last we checked. The death of an otherwise healthy college athlete this week is also drawing some new attention to the virus's effects on young people. Chad Dorill, a 19-year-old sophomore at Appalachian State in North Carolina, died after he recovered from the respiratory symptoms, but then he developed neurological problems. Terrible. It's just terrible.
This is a tragic story. If you haven't read about it, this kid was like the poster boy for who's supposed to really be the safest, right, from the virus. Young, tall, athletic. He was a basketball player. Usually I don't really like highlighting these sort of single stories of somebody who died because we don't really have any idea what actually happened, and these stories end up having the effect of like scaring people. But in this case, it really just highlights, I think, Jill, how mysterious this thing still is, right? All these months into it. And I think what scares me, all these months later is not necessarily that I'm going to get sick or that somebody I love is going to get sick. So much as that what scares me is that they get sick, they recover, and then they have some of these weird secondary illnesses or symptoms, right? We interviewed this woman on Cheddar the other day who was one of these so-called long haulers. Again, she was young, she was a nurse, healthy. She got sick in March with COVID, and she was talking about how she still can't really function. She has all these, she's just foggy. She has the loss of smell, all of these issues with like her kidneys. It's just, it's really scary.
That actually, as I talk to more people, that seems to be the norm, to tell you the truth. Because I was chatting the other day with these two people who I'm sort of friendly with, and one of them was saying he had COVID at the beginning. He said he had it and his mom had it. He said his mom, who's in her 70s, had 101 fever or above for 16 straight days. And he said she's okay, she survived, but will never be the same. He said he just got back his sense of taste months after, right? So for months, he had no sense of taste. I was talking to this other woman. She said her husband had it. Miraculously, no one else in the family got it because they isolated him right away. And she said he didn't have a lack of taste. He had like bad taste. So, do you know like when you brush your teeth and then have orange juice and it just doesn't taste right? He said like everything tasted like that to him. Like he was drinking things and just spitting them out. He didn't drink coffee. He basically just lived on water and like bland food for a long time.
A lot of people are saying that it tastes like bad meat in some ways.
Oh, like so it sounds like. So the more people that I talk to, like, they say they had it, they survived, they're okay, they're walking around, but yes, they have these residual effects, and the heart stuff is particularly troubling. When they look at athletes, even who were asymptomatic, but did test positive at a point for COVID-19, who have enlarged hearts and just their hearts aren't the same. So I agree with you. It's frightening, right? And it's something like when we first heard of coronavirus back in February and March. It was new, so we didn't know that there were these long-term effects.
Yeah, we still don't really know what those long-term effects really mean. I mean, there will be studies about this for the rest of our lives, right? About how these people, have went on with their lives and what happened years down the road.
And so there's a case in a middle school near where I live. And so everyone's trying to figure out like who's been in contact with this person or with the sibling of somebody in this class. And actually, I was really surprised because apparently the Department of Health is saying that the sibling of that person doesn't need to quarantine. Like I thought it would be like school shut down. You know what I mean? Like I thought the school would be closed and that's it. And it seems a little lax to me, actually. And it was only because everyone kind of found out about what class it was in, that it was almost like this public shaming where everyone's like, okay, maybe I won't send my kid to, XYZ after school. This is our new normal, and there's these weird social things that are now happening. It's terrible. It's
scary.
It's very scary. All right. talking politics here. House Democrats last night delayed voting on their new version of a stimulus bill, a promising sign that negotiations with the White House are progressing. Speaker Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin both had optimistic things to say about the state of the talks, with Mnuchin revealing that a second round of stimulus checks will likely be included. But the clock is ticking here.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we're October 1st. This is the deadline for the airlines, and it's already starting. United and American both saying that they will start mass furloughs. Though they did say, I should mention, that they're going to reverse them if a deal is reached soon. So there is still time on the clock. But it's, again, it's just we don't have a lot of time. The stock market, by the way, just ended its worst month since March. And the impending election really sort of puts like an informal deadline on both sides to reach a deal on a new package, which then has to get passed, go through the Senate, and then get signed into law by President Trump. One of not to go back to the debate too much, but one of the dozens really of missed opportunities for Joe Biden in that debate was when Chris Wallace asked him about the K-shaped recovery, basically teeing him up. It was like a total softball. Like, explain what a K-shaped recovery is. There was a Washington Post analysis this week showing just how how lopsided this recession has been. For those at the top, this is essentially an inconvenience, right? And then for those at the bottom, it's just a total blowout, a total washout, like a complete disaster. Biden he probably should have if I were him, I would have just drawn a picture of a K on a piece of paper and held it up and be like, look, this is what's happening. The rich are here and the not rich are here. That's what this means. The stock market is not showing the full picture of what's happening in this country.
No, not at all. We're going to get a jobs report tomorrow, actually.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it's Jobs Friday, so we'll get the big jobs report. But we've talked about this before. It's like it's separate. It is a separate thing. The stock market is very different from the overall economy, and even if it's a look way into the future. Okay, I could go on a total tangent about that, but
totally.
Okay, this is sort of related. A quarter of working women are considering scaling back their career ambitions or leaving the workforce entirely because of the stresses related to the pandemic, according to a study from McKinsey and Sheryl Sandberg's leanin.org. The Women in the Workplace report found that working mothers are 3 times more likely to be handling the brunt of housework than working fathers, and the burden is falling particularly on Black women.
Also from that study, female executives more likely than their male peers to feel burnt out just from juggling the work and the family obligations. That's a lot of that is because they're typically older and they're more likely to have families and kids. Jill, I mean, it sounds sort of stupid coming from me, a man with no kids, but I think that the toll that this is taking on working parents, especially working moms, is probably one of the more undercovered parts of this story, right?
Carlo, I could break down right now. I am not lying. I've considered taking a leave of absence from work. That is not a joke. It is a burden like I cannot explain. My daughter started school. She had a runny nose, which she'll probably have for 4 months. And she can't go. She can't go to school. So what we thought was we thought we had a plan, right? Like we were all set. School starts. This is amazing.
Some relief, right?
My husband could start potentially going back to work. And by the way, rightfully so. Like these schools need to be careful with these kids. We can't have coronavirus come back. But this is the situation, and I'm lucky. I even have the option of sending my daughter to school, right? Like there are some in a twos program. There's a lot of, we had a nanny, it didn't work out. We can't get babysitters coming in because of COVID, because you can't just have like random people coming in. It's just, there's no way around it. It is just such a difficult situation, and I'm lucky because my husband he's bearing the brunt of it, in all honesty, at this point. I don't know how much longer we can do that, but there's nothing. It's terrible. It is terrible. It is exhausting. It is a different world. This pandemic for people without kids is an inconvenience, and for people with kids, it's like debilitating. It's just it never ends. Like it's just. it's hard for me to even put out in words, but it's so overly exhausting. And I'm a mom with resources, right? Like I'm a mom who has savings. I'm a mom who could send my kid to school. I'm not a single mom. Like I'm probably in the better situation than most, and I'm feeling it. So.
Well, I'm glad you said it. I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. And but I'm glad that you said it, because I think that there's a lot of people out there that are feeling this, and I don't know what there is no answer, right? But I think it probably helps to hear it from people like you, that they're not alone, and this is not something that is just going away, right?
And big picture, right? And when you look at the big picture, like we're at this point where women are finally making a lot of progress in the workplace. We had the Me Too movement. What does this mean long term, right? If women are stepping back from opportunities, I feel it personally, right? Like there's all these extra projects that I would love to work on. I cannot. There are 24 hours in a day, and I'm just like doing the best I can to keep my head above water. So what does this mean for women's career trajectories? It's a real story, and I think one that we should probably look into more, but we do need to move on.
Absolutely.
A heartbreaking story playing out this early morning on social media. Chrissy Teigen and John Legend announced last night on their social channels that they have lost their child after pregnancy complications. Earlier this week, Teigen said that she was about halfway through the pregnancy and bleeding significantly when she went to the hospital, where she underwent blood transfusions that just were not enough to save their unborn child, whom the couple said they had started calling Jack. Just so sad.
Terrible. The couple's other two children, Luna and Miles, were conceived via IVF, Teigen said. But she said that the new pregnancy was natural, and she said that was something that she didn't think was possible for her, which is just all the more heartbreaking. Just quoting from her on Twitter this morning, "Driving home from the hospital with no baby, how can this be real?" I say that because I think that that's a feeling that a lot of parents have had. And again, I say this as somebody who hasn't had children, but it's something that's still stigmatized, right? I think this is something that a lot of people avoid talking about. So I think it's probably a good thing that people with the with the reach that Chrissy Teigen and John Legend have to be so forthcoming about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to see more moms, especially, talk about this type of stuff on social media, but it is one of these things that is, again, yes, it is still sort of stigmatized. And Chrissy Teigen, she has a huge platform, and hopefully something good can come from it, which is just that we could start talking about this. But just for them on a personal level, we're thinking of them and just heartbreaking. And finally, Carlo, I know you wanted to hit on this yesterday, but we did get bogged down by the debate and ran out of time. But how about some news that could literally change the future of humanity for the better? That is not hyperbole. Okay, so it's a bit dense, but stick with us. Okay, the question of how to capture energy from nuclear fission has been one of the greatest quests of science since it was discovered in the 1930s. But now researchers at MIT, who have been researching how to make a compact fusion reactor, are saying that it looks like it's working. In new research papers, scientists say that they're going to start constructing the actual reactor next year, with the goal of completing it in 3 or 4 years and a full-scale fusion power plant to follow if all goes well. So, Carlo, walk us through why this is such a big deal, because I know you're jazzed about it.
So just because we needed a little bit of of news this week, I think, about our future, and this is it. And I mean, again, this is hardly a done deal, but should it work, nuclear fusion, which is essentially how the sun makes heat, right? It has really profound impacts for the planet. It can produce an enormous amount of energy, and it doesn't produce any emissions. Think about the impact on the climate if we could harness that, right? Obviously, there's a million caveats here. We've tried to make nuclear fusion in the past. It's failed. You're talking about trying to harness the energy of the sun on Earth. It's extremely dangerous. But they're saying that it's possible now. And I think just that possibility makes it the most important thing that nobody's talking about. Right? With the potential to really, like you said, Jill, solve some of humankind's most existential problems, climate change being among them. So I just wanted to hit that today. I think sometimes we all get bogged down in sort of like the minutia of the day-to-day, Donald Trump and all the other, just stuff that is just hitting us upside the head every day. But, there's real innovation happening, and there's real, scientific progress being made that could just do a lot for our children, right? This is something that could potentially happen in our lifetimes.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that you mentioned it. And I'm like having regrets that I just opened up so personally a little bit about just my life right now.
You should.
And and it's like part of me is like, is this going to be used against me, right? Like, am I going to not now get a cool assignment because I just said, I'm struggling, And this is the conundrum that women are faced with,
Sure.
I think, and that anybody is faced with, especially now, where all of these sort of safety nets that we had, and I was talking about it with my parents, and I was like, normally I would have my mom, who we purposely moved 10 minutes from my parents and my husband's parents,
Right.
and normally I would have them come and help out with caretaking, and we can't. My daughter started school. I can't risk it. Like, it's
Too
just
risky, yeah.
So here we go. Anyway, I'd like to hear from other parents who, and just let me know what you're going through. We can just kind of commiserate together. But I hope it wasn't too much to divulge on this podcast. But I do feel like we're all kind of family here.
Yeah,
So-
I'm with you, Jill, and I feel for you, and I've got your back.
Thank you. And again, I could see the emails coming in of like, well, you have it, you don't even have it so bad. And I know that, right? Like, I know
Right.
that I don't have it
But that's
so
the
bad.
point. That's the point. If it's so hard for somebody like you can only imagine how hard it is for the woman who's, working the checkout at Whole Foods while her kid is doing Zoom classes, right? Like, this is
Yeah.
a disaster.
Yes.
Ugh.
All right. Womp womp. Okay, we'll end it there. I know you wanted to end this on a good note. I'm sorry, Carlo. I brought it back.
All right. That's all right.
It's Thursday. It's October. It's a great weather day. Everyone, take some time to smile. Okay, that's what
Yes.
you need to know for Thursday, October 1st.
And we'll get you a special political podcast later today if you're interested in that. Bye, guys.